As I write these words, people of faith are, in their different ways, planning your and my destruction. And the destruction of all the hard-won human attainments that I have touched upon. Religion poisons everything. Once again, religion poisons everything, including our own faculties of discernment. Religion poisons everything. As well as a menace to civilization, it has become a threat to human survival. I know I was a little dramatic there. That's the late Christopher Hitchens. Some of you may be familiar with him. He's written quite extensively on the trouble of religion, and this was what he had to say in God is Not Great. Religion poisons everything. He did a better job than perhaps anybody at summarizing the issue, the problem that we concern ourselves with today, namely the idea, is Christianity good? Or as many people put it, Christianity is not good. Christianity has done more harm than good. Certainly Hitchens is not the first to say something like that. When Stephen and the first apostles carried out their ministry, some Jewish people from around Asia came into the temple and accused the Jewish believers, the first believers, "We have heard Stephen speak blasphemous words against Moses and against God." Blasphemous, i.e. they were speaking evil of God. These first believers were accused of being evil people. Or the Apostle Paul, he returned from his mission trips, and again some believers from all around Asia accused Paul and said that they were stirring up the whole crowd, and they seized Paul and they shouted, "Fellow Israelites, help us! This is the man who teaches everyone everywhere against our people and our law and this place. And besides, he has brought Greeks into the temple, and he has defiled this holy place." Now you aren't Jewish people who lived 2,000 years ago, and so you don't feel the pain, the thrust, right, of this accusation. But for a Jewish person like Paul 2,000 years ago, this is one of the worst things that could be said of him. Paul, they said, was evil. We tend to think that calling Christianity bad or evil is a new thing, but it has plainly been done for quite a long time. Still, there is something new about the way it's done today. Now we've got history. Christians have made their share of mistakes. What do you think are the most evil mistakes that Christians have made in the last 2,000 years? You probably can list them as well as I can. The Crusades. Not exactly a high point in Christian life, was it? Or the association of Christianity with Nazi Germany and the rise of Nazism? Or imperialism and colonialism from Europe and some of the things that were carried out in the name of Christian religion by the imperialists? Christianity has its own share of faults, and that accusation, Christianity is not good, Christianity has done more harm than good, does carry some teeth now. Especially because we messed up plenty along the way. And so today, we need to ask this question. Seriously, is Christianity good? And our event today lets us ask that question. We've got the Apostle Saul here, or the Apostle Paul, as we ask this question, is Christianity good? Paul, he was one of those people that was convinced that Christianity was evil. And he convinced the Jewish religious leaders to authorize him to go around and as he calls them, eliminate these followers of the way, to arrest any that were this stain on society and get rid of them. And he was on a mission to do that in an area on the northeast side of Galilee. If you envision Israel this way, Judah and Jerusalem down here, he was going to go up there and arrest everybody that he could find. And we'll see what happens today. Is Christianity good or bad? Before we do that, let me ask you, is Christianity good? I see a few of you smiling and nodding, saying yes. How do you answer the question, though? Is Christianity good? There's a number of ways to answer the question. There's lots of people who have written on this question. Some of my favorites, How Christianity Changed the World. I remember reading this book from Alvin Schmidt, or I recently took a look at this book from Is Christianity Good for the World? There's a number of others, Confronting Christianity, and 10 questions every teen should ask and answer about Christianity, from Rebecca McLaughlin, or there's Tom Holland's Dominion, if you like people who want to write huge tomes that are not particularly religious. Each one of them is going to approach the question in their own way and ask this question, is Christianity good? And their thesis is going to be something like, how has Christianity changed or made the world better? And they'll give you a number of then historical examples that they work through. If you don't have an answer for that question, definitely encourage you to check one of those out. I meant to make up some cheat sheets for you so that you could take them home, but I never got around to it. If anybody wants to help me make up some cheat sheets. But here's a list of ways even Alvin Schmidt just gives us that says, here's how Christianity has changed the world or is really good. For example, he says, life transformation. Even from the very beginning of time of its days, Christianity changed the lives of thousands of people. Christianity elevated human life, especially in the Roman Empire. It was the Roman Empire was filled with infanticide and abortion, and the Roman Empire changed through Christianity to encourage keeping of their children and ending of abortion to some extent. The Christians rescued abandoned children. They boycotted the gladiatorial games. They countered suicide. They practiced burial and respect for the dead. They adopted. They practiced caring for the aged. All these ways. Even we could go on then. So those are just some of the small ways that they elevated human life. But then Christianity elevated sexual morality. It began to minimize or help decrease the incredible promiscuity that was part of the Roman life. It restored marriage so that marriage was actually a thing practiced again, because marriage had become something that was completely irrelevant for the Roman life. Women received freedom and dignity. This was a particularly helpful example. In the Roman society, women were considered property. So men could sleep with anybody they want or have sexual relationships with anybody they wanted. And the only limitation to that was that you couldn't sleep with somebody who was a property owner's wife. Only property owners in the ancient Roman world, or people who were part of this upper class, were actually allowed to be considered citizens and have rights. And women were considered property of them, and the only way then that you could commit a fault by sleeping with somebody was to sleep with a woman who was owned by a property owner. So there was no crime ever committed. I mean, in that, it's obviously much like our time today. You couldn't commit a crime by sleeping with somebody to whom you weren't married, but they criminalized the action by saying that women were property of then their husbands who owned property. That was the only way. And Christianity helped to undo that and allow women to have property rights. Charity and compassion. In the Roman Empire, for example, compassionate care was only really carried out by people who had huge money to put up big, fancy buildings that would then be used to care for the poor. Christianity came along and said, well, what if we didn't flaunt our wealth and we cared for everybody equally? Or hospitals and healthcare. The Council of Nicaea directed the religious leaders to establish hospitals in every city. Christianity gave us education. State-supported schools provided education for children, and that can be traced back to the Reformation and to the Lutherans in Germany. Universities came out of monasteries. We can go on. Labor and economic freedom. There's much that can be said about the Christian impact on individual rights so that we could have our own ability to practice labor. Science and the scientific method came much out of Christianity. Liberty and individual rights, the abolition of slavery, the story, certainly you know the stories of Lincoln and Wilberforce. Even a research project from lots of years showed that the effects of Christian mission on particular civilizations around the world. That is to say, the more that Christians carried out missionary work in indigenous countries, the more likely the governments there were to respect human rights, the rule of law, and be less prone to tyranny. So proselytizing and conversion Protestant missionaries heavily influenced the spread of democracy around the world. Some of these things are all things that we're familiar with, even if we don't know all of the history. And if you don't, you might want to pick one or two and study them in depth. In fact, in a recent Christianity Today article, they quickly summarized and said, here's a ways that if you are a regular church-attending Christian, life will probably be better for you. You are less depressed, or you have less depression, less suicide, less emotional pain medicators participate in church life and Christianity, including smoking and substance abuse. You have greater social support. You find greater meaning in life, greater life satisfaction, more volunteering, greater civic engagement, and your children are more likely to grow up happy as a regularly practicing Christian. And these are not things that they are just guessing at. These are based on large-scale studies of individuals reporting on the quality of their life and comparing practicing Christians with those who don't. All of which is to say, I probably overwhelmed you there, but there's probably a good 20-something ways that you can pick that Christianity is good. Dig into any one of them, and you'll learn a lot. It's pretty impressive. And it's not the kind of thing that you learn about in school. Even as a young man attending a Christian grade school and high school, I don't think I ever had a class that said, let's tell you all the ways now that Christianity has made the world a better place. That would have been sort of pompous, a little bit arrogant, right? It would have felt very strange to go through such a class, but it is really helpful to know how religion and Christianity in particular is good for you and good for the world around you. You know, I've always had this sort of eerie feeling in my life, maybe you have too, that you're hurting yourself and the people around you with your religious practices. Right? You're wasting your life and your time reading your Bible and praying and showing up for church on Sundays, and you think to yourself, maybe there's better ways I should spend my time. And you're wasting your money, and you're thinking to yourself, look at all the money that I give away through church and other charitable organizations. Maybe I should do other things with my money, and the world would be a better place. Or you think that you're maybe setting your kids up for failure, because it's rare to find somebody who is super successful from a Christian church, especially a smaller Christian church life. And you think to yourself, you know, if I was secular, if I wasn't associated with these Christians, then my kids could have better friends, be cooler, and go further in life. Maybe I'm setting my kids up for failure. I know I think those things at times. And I kind of remember then learning the story of somebody like William Wilberforce in the 1800s and how he was instrumental in helping to convince the English Parliament to outlaw slavery in England. And not only then was I struck by that story one time, I mean, I was in my 30s when I finally heard about this event and how a Christian had such a significant impact in it. You think, how could you grow up in a Christian home and go to Christian schools and not learn about one of the most influential individuals in ending slavery was a practicing Christian? But that's how it was. And then it stuck with me so much that just a few days ago when I was reading the story of William Wilberforce again, I noticed for the first time, did you know that Wilberforce had to convince the Parliament to pay all of the landowners in England so that they would get rid of their slaves? Because the major issue with eliminating slavery in England was that it would crush the economy. And all of these landowners would no longer be able to produce food to keep everybody alive. And he convinced Parliament to tax everybody. And I said to myself, how did I not know that? Because he didn't just then charge himself or make himself, but he actually passed on the responsibility to the entire nation. And in a strange way, right, the people paid the price for the crime that had been committed the whole time. See, these are the kinds of things that we start to learn along the way, right, of how Christianity has really changed the world for good. Maybe you've known all those things this whole time. So, if you haven't learned at least one of those, go learn one. But there's one thing that bugs me about all of these. Maybe it bugs you too. I want to take us into our lesson for today, because there's one problem in particular with this list, and I bet you noticed it. In the lesson, Paul, right, he travels on the road. This light flashes around him as he travels down the road. Jesus confronts him. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Jesus answers, I'm Jesus whom you're persecuting. Now get up, go into the city. You'll be told what you must do. All the commentators point out what a fascinating exchange this is. Right? Jesus doesn't talk to him, the voice doesn't talk to him, and come to Paul and say, hey, Paul, why don't you just leave my people alone? You know, they're not really causing any problems. They're helping people a little bit here and there. Why are you making such a big stink out of this thing? You know, just because these people want to go and worship a different God, why are you causing problems? Right? He doesn't say that, does he? The voice also that appears to Paul on the road doesn't say to him, Paul, these are good people. Look at all the good they're doing for the world. They're helping people. They're healing the sick. You know, Peter's been doing really good miracles. We know that that's been going on, right? Peter healed a 40-year-old lame man. The believers shared their possessions with everybody. The all apostles as a whole, they healed countless individuals. But Jesus didn't say that. Just like maybe you and I might say today, well, yeah, Christianity is good. Look at this big long list of all the ways that Christianity is good. Do you see what I'm saying? Jesus didn't say that. What did he say? What did he say? He said very simply, I am Jesus. Now, does that strike you? You think about this. When somebody confronts you and says, hey, why are you a Christian? It's such a waste of time. And you've done such terrible things in the world. I mean, you guys started the Crusades. You had a part in Nazi Germany. You know, you invaded all of these other countries. Not you particularly, right? But Christians invaded countries all over the world and they caused all these problems. What's your response? Well, I'm a good person. I didn't do any of that stuff. Right? Or don't you want to say, well, look at how much good Christianity has done in the world. How can you pick on us? Or you just say, well, I don't know why you're so mean. What have I done to you today? Right? I mean, isn't that what we all want to say? We want to defend ourselves. We want to pick the argument and fight back. And what does Jesus say to Paul? He doesn't say, hey, leave my people alone. They're pretty good people. He doesn't say, well, Paul, you should be more tolerant of everybody else. Why aren't you some more tolerant? He doesn't even say to Paul, you know, Paul, these people have been doing good work in the world. You let them do their thing. Instead, what does he say? He says, I am Jesus. Now, think of how significant that is for you and me, right? Because the Christian contention is not that this world is broken and hurting, and that you and I need to make it a better place. That's not what we're saying. That would be nothing but moralism, and the gospel, it would just be a message to say to people, hey, go and live a better life, and here's how you do it. You need to live better lives. That would be an important thing, we would say. And the Christian contention, it's not what we might call relativism either. The Christian contention is not to say, everybody's good, everything is good, it's all going to be okay. Right? You're okay, I'm okay, you go live however you want. Let's not worry about this. Because that would make the gospel into just some piece of good information that says, nothing in life is better than anything else. There's no right and wrong, there's no good or bad. Let's just let it all be. Now, I know that that's a lot to throw at you, and we would have to break this down some more another day. Right now, you're thinking to yourself, holy cow, why are we talking about moralism and relativism? I thought we were talking about whether or not Christianity is good. But I'm trying to help you and I see what the Scriptures show us, and I want you and I to not fall into the same trap that so many of us do. So often when people come to us and say, why don't you Christians, why aren't you better people? Why don't you do more good in the world? We say, hey, you should just leave me alone. Why aren't you nice like me? What have I done to you lately? Or we say, look at how good of a person we are. Look at all of the good things we've done. But the Christian contention has never been, we need to make the world a better place. The Christian contention has never been, the world is just fine, it's okay, let's leave it the way it is. The Christian contention has always been this weird thing that says that there's a man named Jesus who suffered and died, not to make the world a better place, not to fix it, but to become the Lord and the King and the Savior of it. He is the hope for the nations. He is the ruler of the world. He is the Lord and the Lamb of all things. And that's it. And if the world becomes a better place because of it, great. And if the world goes to hell in a handbasket because of it, that's fine too. But either way, the gospel is still true. Right? The Christian contention is to say, Jesus died and rose, and we know that's good, whether or not the world gets better. We know that Jesus died and rose, and that's good, whether or not we feed the poor. We know that Jesus died and rose, and that's good, whether or not the people live because they get over their sickness. We know this one thing is good. Jesus died and rose. This is the Christian message. This is the Christian contention. The entire bit of the Christian project is not a self-help thing. It's not to fix the world. And it's not to tolerate the world falling into a terrible place. It's to say, blessed are the poor, for they will become rich. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will laugh. Blessed are the hungry, for they will be well fed. That's the Christian message. That's the Christian contention. And what makes Christianity really good is that it is just good news. I was trying to think about how to wrap my mind around this idea, this understanding, right, of Christianity. Christianity is not good because it promises to fix the world. Christianity is not good because it just lets everybody do what they want. Christianity is good because Jesus died and rose. He is the servant of all and the Lord of all. End of story. And I thought, what if I put it this way? Everybody listen, I've got something great to tell you. Now, if you are sitting in the stadium or at home and your kid runs home to you and says, hey, listen up, I've got something great to tell you. And they tell you that the team, Otsego, just beat their longtime rivals Plainwell. There's a few of you who are going to say, hooray! It's about time. A few of you are going to say, well, that stinks. And the majority of you are going to say, fine, I don't really care. Life goes on. Right? If I run in the room and I tell you, hooray, hooray, I've got some good news to tell you. And you say, what's the good news? And I say, my aunt's cancer went away. More of you will say, well, that's great. I'm happy that your aunt has cancer. Or has gotten over her cancer. Excuse me, I misspoke there. Right? That her cancer went away. But most of you are going to say, well, what does that have to do with me? Right? I mean, that's great for you, but that doesn't help me. If I ran into the room and said, hooray, hooray, I've got some good news to tell you today, and I told you there's a new factory and a new engineering division moving into town. They're going to take over the old factory in Plainwell, and we're going to build some really cool widgets, and we're going to send them all over the world. There's going to be jobs and new money for everybody in town. Now, most of you would say, well, that's actually pretty good. That's kind of good. Yeah, I'm happy about that. I'd like to have some new jobs, and I'd like to see new businesses open in town. That sounds good. Right? But there's still a few of you would say, I don't know, that doesn't really do it for me. I don't really care about factories. What would do it for you and you and you and everybody else in the whole world? What would be the one good thing that would fix not just your life, but everybody else's life? What would be the one message that would change the course of all humanity? And isn't it this? Jesus died and rose for you. Everything that you have to do in your life has been done. Every obligation you have to fulfill has been completed. All of the wealth that you're trying to attain with your life has already been earned and set aside for you. The home that you want to make has been built for you. The family that you want to have and to hold on to already exists. And you're part of it, and it's been set aside for you. The friends that you want to walk through life with, they're right here, and they're walking through life with you. And the God who satisfies your every desire has already made them all come true. That's the one message that I can tell to every single person in the world, and it is good for all. And that's why Christianity is good. The gospel is good. It is good for each and every one of you. And whether or not we fix the world's problems or the world falls apart and goes to hell in a handbasket, that message is still good for each and every one of you.